Our guests join us from all over the world and generously share their expertise, knowledge, and insight into the digital world and how we operate within it. If you join us from LinkedIn or YouTube, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and follow our pages to continue seeing content that will help you grow your business online. Today, we're talking about B2B strategies in the workplace for entrepreneurs. And this is so timely because B2B can be very difficult online because, when you have a product, it's much easier to sell from a visual perspective versus a service. So it's extremely important to have these discussions. As always, I'm joined by the CEO of First Atlantic Commerce. Chris, how are you today?
Hi, good morning. Very well, thanks. Great to see you again.
Great. As well as we have the grand privilege of speaking with our guest, Tyrona Heath. She is the Director of Marketing Engagement at B2B Institute at LinkedIn, a think tank funded by LinkedIn studying the future of B2B marketing and decision making. We have so much information to share with you, so don't worry, the 60 minutes will fly by so fast. Ty is also the co-founder of Transform Her, the premier conference for professional women of color and allies in technology. She's also a two-time Olympic trials qualifier in the 800 meters. So a well-rounded individual. How are you today, Ty?
Thank you so much. That was such a warm introduction. I'm super excited to be here.
We are excited to have you, and based on the response and the attendance, a lot of people are excited to hear what you have to say. So I just want to get right into it because we don't have much time. When it comes to marketing, it's such a broad word. Everybody likes to throw a little sales in there. We have the separation of digital and the more it's had evolved so much with digital. So when it comes to B2B marketing, Ty, tell us, what does it mean?
Yeah. Well, first, let me tell you a little bit more about the think tank so you can get a sense of why B2B and the focus here. But my job is to research new approaches to B2B growth. We want to transform the category to beyond the tactical to helping B2B take the long view. So why should B2B take the long view? Well, going back to what you asked, what is it in the first place? Very simply said, it's when one company is selling stuff to another company. So that's instead of selling stuff to people like you and me. So think about it as big company like IBM selling an analytics platform versus us going to the store and buying a Coca-Cola or Coca-Cola selling us a Coke. And so that's what it's all about. And the thing that people need to understand about B2B is that it makes up over half of the global economy. And there's some huge, companies in this space that sell to other companies that are bigger and faster growing than some B2C companies, right? And I really think it's the future of economic growth. And there's a lot to invest in. And in particular, the fact that when you think about B2B companies, it's very easy maybe for people to think about B2C, but for B2B, people might be like, well, I can't think of brands very easily or readily. And we want to change that by making B2B brands famous.
Such a great point, especially when you have companies like Microsoft, where we take it for granted. We just go online and check our emails, but there's all these different elements that we don't see in the background, and
That's right.
someone's doing something. And we're on this conversation on the FAC platform, so we're looking at payment solutions and payment gateways. So, Chris, you want to chime in here on a conversation around the difference in the payments space B2C versus B2B?
Yeah, sure. And I'm so excited about this session today, and I have a mild obsession with LinkedIn, and it's probably one of the tools that I use most heavily in sort of day-to-day interaction. And for us as a technology company, we're firmly in the B2B sphere, but our challenge is that we have quite a range in terms of the different companies that we sell to. So we have individual, sort of sole traders that are selling one or two products, through to large, multinational, publicly listed companies, people like Amazon and Walmart on the platform now. So it's a real challenge for us sometimes to get that messaging right, because we want to be seen as all things to all people, but the messaging to a much larger company is definitely different to the messaging from our smaller sort of micro entrepreneurs and SME type clients. So, when we're looking at the different platforms that we use to get our marketing message out, we have to be very specific in terms of what we choose and where we spend our marketing dollars to make sure that we're actually meeting our audience where they are, opposed to where we think they might be.
So true, Chris. And Ty, just a little background. Chris and I met on LinkedIn.
I
So
love
talk about being obsessed with the platform. I'm the face of that obsession.
that.
I've met so many people. I went to Barbados a couple like last month, and I'm walking into a conference, and someone goes, "Hi, are you Pauline?" And I was like, "Hi." They're like, "I follow you on LinkedIn." I was like, "Oh my gosh, thanks."
Yeah, yeah, no, that's amazing. I think one of the beautiful things about LinkedIn is that you can be connected to people and follow them and keep in touch with them, and maybe you'll never meet them in your life, but then sometimes it translates from that online to offline. But either way, you have the capacity to influence people, inspire people, motivate them, educate. There's so much to it, and I love that you two met on LinkedIn as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a genuine space that you get to meet real people online, which is as harder to do now with so much options. And when it comes to the space within marketing, that understanding, because folks are like, oh my gosh, I have this service to sell. I can't use a website to sell my service. In reality, that's where your customers are. So when it comes to this idea of B2B marketing, Ty, can you give us some insight into the differences? Because you've been in the
Yeah,
marketing space for quite some time. Let's not give a number, right?
a long time.
A long time. So when it comes to, give us a main difference between that B2B and and B2C space in the marketing industry.
Yeah. So, a couple things. There are a couple key differences for people to think about when it comes to B2B versus B2C. One of the things I would say is that sales activation is much harder in B2B than it is in B2C. Why is that? Because it takes longer for B2B decisions to be made. So sales cycles are longer. Typically, there's like a dozen different touch points needed to close a deal. There are more people happen to be involved in the decision, and there are more things that need to be communicated. So when you think about Coca-Cola, I'll go back to the Coca-Cola example because everyone knows Coca-Cola. They don't need to spend that much time explaining the functional benefits of a soda. Whereas like IBM has to put in more work to close a multi-million-dollar IT contract. So it's not to say that it creates more value. It's just that it requires more resources. B2B takes more time to decide, and more people have a say. There are bigger deals. So in B2B, businesses might buy a lot at once for their operations. B2C, smaller deals, it's one person buying for themselves. We just talked about relationship building. So because it's decisions being made for the long haul, relationship building is so important. Building memories with people so that you're the brand that's thought of when it's time for them to make that decision is incredibly important. And then the last thing I would say when it comes to a marketing strategy, we have to balance brand building and demand generation. I know we'll talk about this maybe a little bit more later, but because we have to build memory with people, we have to invest in brand, but at the same time, we have to also be there and able to communicate the product itself to capture the demand. So all of these things are important to think about. And it's one of the reasons I love B2B, because there's like these moving parts to it that we have to master to grow our business.
It's so great to hear that coming from you, because a lot of times people, ask me, like, I even have friends who say, how do you do this social media thing? You have to teach me, and it's like, that idea of being a personal brand online, people tend to think more of a being an influencer in the space
Mhm.
of, oh, well, I'm going to sell this stuff. In the reality, it's building that trust, right?
It's exactly. It's building the trust over time, and it's also answering the question of what are you known for? So it's not it's the trust, but the trust for what? And being associated with being the solution to a particular thing. And so that message clearly communicated is over time is really important for B2B and for people building their brand in general.
And it's interesting because it evolves into people trusting you when that contract comes and you have to sign that contract because people have seen evidence that you know what you're talking about.
That's right.
So I just want to slide into the comments. Chantel George is excited to see Ty in action.
Ah,
Uh,
Chantel, how you doing?
and we also have Vadis here from Barbados. So the Caribbeans in the house,
Oh,
here to
yeah,
learn and ready to squeeze up all the information from you, Ty.
I love it.
So when it comes to building that trust, I want to shift it back to Chris and ask about the importance of that when it comes to the payment space, because ultimately, as a business, you're for profit. You want folks to be like, okay, I trust you. I'm going to put in my credit card information. So give us a little insight as to why this conversation is so important.
In our particular part of the business is really everything. So we're providing a vital part in a company's business that's about securing their money, securing their revenue. And in our space, when we're trying to convert people from a physical sort of cash based economy to a digital payments perspective, trust is as I said everything there, because there has been a number of bad actors within there, and we've seen some cybersecurity issues through the Caribbean over the last sort of 12 months or so as well. So when we are having these conversations with our clients and our bank partners, for example, we need to be able to impart on them that they can trust those transactions with us. And so we go through a number of different things and able to demonstrate that in terms of things like PCI compliance and our PCI DSS level certifications and things like that. But really our ultimate aim with our marketing is when people think payments within our specific region, our name is top of mind. So when we are thinking about how we are marketing out to the audience, it's not, I guess, like you'd have in a B2C type of environment where you might have a particular known for a particular image or an icon or a catchphrase. We're always trying to put out content that is making people feel comfortable that we are the right partner for them to help their business grow and accept money and deposit money into their bank accounts. So that's why something like LinkedIn, for example, is a really good platform for us, because it's made up of professionals of all levels throughout the world, and then we can consistently put that message out there that people know when they want to accept payments or they see our logo or our image, that they know they can trust us to deliver for them.
And the growth of LinkedIn in the Caribbean, it's quite interesting because when I started to really spend the energy and time on LinkedIn, there was less than 100,000 people from Trinidad and Tobago on LinkedIn. Now, I'll tell you what that number looks like after the break, but the reality is the growth has been insane, because people are seeing the importance of
Mhm.
building their personal brand online.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. LinkedIn's, mission is economic opportunity for global professionals, and I want to make sure that everyone taps into that. My family's from Jamaica, and so, I feel a particular responsibility to make sure that folks throughout the Caribbean are plugged into that opportunity and within the broader African diaspora as well, because conversations are going on, deals are happening in the DMs. I mean, it's a good place to be and to build.
Absolutely. So we're going to go on a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about something that I feel very passionate and nerdy about, data, because LinkedIn is sitting down on so much data touch points. So when we come back, we will be talking a little bit more about B2B marketing strategies that work for Caribbean entrepreneurs. We'll be right back. Good morning and welcome back to First Atlantic Commerce. Here at the FAC Live Show, we cover all things e-commerce in the Caribbean. Our guests join us from all over the world and generously share their expertise, knowledge, and insight into the digital world and how we operate within it. If you're joining us from LinkedIn, don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that'll help you grow your business online. Today, we're talking about B2B strategies for the work for entrepreneurs. Like, it's so important for us. Come on, guys, let's use this technology. As always, I'm joined by Chris, the CEO of First Atlantic Commerce. Are you okay there, Chris? He's not feeling too well, so we're so grateful
Yes.
you joined us today.
No, good. I'm just hoping the voice lasts the session.
That's okay. Ty and I will babble away. Uh, Ty joins us from the B2B Institute at LinkedIn, and she actually has quite a packed calendar. So we're so happy that she's joined us today. She's actually going to be speaking very soon at the Adobe Summit, which is kind of a big deal. So thanks again for joining us, Ty. All right, so let's get into it because I am a geek when it comes to data, but it's still something that people are a bit afraid of because numbers are difficult to translate. So before we get into all the reports and all the options that are existing, Ty, can you tell us why it's important to look at data in the B2B space?
Yes, absolutely. It's a signal. So I think one of the most important things is to separate signal from noise. And so deciding what metrics are going to help you chart the path forward is really the name of the game when it comes to marketing and frankly, literally anything that you want to take on. So I think for B2B, most importantly, for a long time, a lot of the focus has been on demand generation, and there are a lot of metrics there to think about, right? But I think the opportunity in terms of charting the path forward is also around how do you build a famous B2B brand? And so as we think about metrics to do that, you want to start looking at things like attention, looking at measuring, are people remembering your brand? Are they remembering your brand for particular messages? And then looking at things like evenness. So how is your ad being seen throughout the year? Not trying to time the market, but spending time in the market. And then your efficiency and effectiveness. And then overall, I would say, like, when you have a strong brand, you are able to hire more easily. So these are sort of the outcomes, like what's the point of all of this that we're trying to do, of building a brand in the first place? Having the capacity to hire talent, having the capacity to have the people pick up the phone when your salespeople call, right? And then from a marketing standpoint, having pricing power, being able to maneuver from one category to another. So I think all in all, thinking about how your activities are leading to these bigger business outcomes, because I think a lot of people, when they think about marketing metrics, they kind of think about it in a way that is more limited, where we could open the aperture and look at the real impact that marketing has on a business overall. So I'll pause there, but those are some thoughts on data and the translation to the types of outcomes we want to see, not just driven by marketing, but more broadly, how marketing can help your company overall.
Fantastic insight. I want to give a shout out to Zara Henry in the comments. She is shouting from Jamaica, and she's thanking us for making a space focused on Caribbean entrepreneurs. And I can't say Jamaica without pulling in some data, as I promised you before the break. So I went to the back end, I did some digging, and currently Jamaica has over 800,000 people for your target audience, which is extremely important for any business, not just in Jamaica, but anyone who is looking to reach that Jamaican customer. So we're here, guys, in FSC, just giving you some quality content, basically.
Love it.
So when it comes to data, Chris, it's a hard shift when you are brick and mortar and now having to say, okay, I have an online business. No longer I'm expecting people to come into the office because a lot of us just don't want to sit down in 2 hours traffic. Like, we're going to try to avoid that as much as possible. So let's talk about the importance of incorporating that element to your business. What have you seen based on your 20 plus years in this space? The hardest shift into that data conversation within the payment gateway segment?
Yeah, I think there's a really important next step when you move that from that shift from brick and mortar to online, because and using that data effectively, because a lot of people feel that, and we've seen this mistake time and time again, where they will build the website and then just expect all the traffic to come in and for them to sell everything that they have. And that's not, of course, not the way it works. So you need to be able to spend as much time promoting the business and selling the business in the right places as you did in building the business in the first place. So when we look at our marketing, we also have to tie it very closely into our sales targets too. So it's not great if your marketing is having one message, but your sales team is targeted on a different vertical, for example, that you're not marketing to. So you've got to make sure you've got those data points correct. And then also, reviewing on a very regular basis what you're actually doing in the performance of the marketing, and platforms like LinkedIn allow you to do that quite easily, because you can see, how many impressions your posts have. You can see the engagement level. You can see how many likes you have, how many dislikes you have. But the data points that are important there as well is when you open yourself up to these types of platforms, is the comments that come back, for the good and for the bad. And you have to be able to have a strategy in place to deal with that data that's coming back to you, whether it's good feedback and, very importantly, bad feedback if you do get it, and how you're going to deal with that and how you respond to that. Because silence in this online connected world is really not an option. So you have to have thought all that through and not have a sort of, I guess, a knee-jerk reaction to the data points that you're getting back.
Yes, no one wants to be told that they're doing something wrong. So I think it takes a little bit of emotional intelligence to be like, okay, this is not about me. This is about my business,
Yeah.
and what can I do to improve on what the feedback looks like? Because I think the worst thing to have is someone having a conversation outside of your social media and making that decision without you. So I think it's a privilege to be part of that discussion with your customer. And when it comes to the B2B space, we want to talk about the most important elements. What does success look like? Because I'm sure a lot of folks watching this going, I can't figure out this thing, this social media thing. I don't know what to do. I feel, paralyzed. So Ty, give us a little therapy session here. Tell us what to do.
Yes. Well, let's back up to some fundamentals, okay, for B2B. And just to start, there are really two types of marketing. So we've been talking about, broad, but I want you to think about it in terms of, like, there's demand generation and then there's also brand building, right? And you want to find a balance between these two types of marketing. You need both to be successful. And so when you think about lead generation or demand generation, that's the type of marketing that's focused on generating immediate sales. So that's how you capture existing demand that exists. These are people that are ready to buy from you right now. They literally have a need for your solution at the moment. But we also have this rule called the 95-5 rule in our research. And what that research says is that 95% of your category buyers in B2B are out market or not ready to buy from you at any given time. So that short-term marketing, that demand generation is really just pursuing that 5% of marketers that are in market right now. So that's where the second type of marketing in B2B comes into play, and that's the long-term marketing, also known as brand building. And so what you do there is you want to think about how do you sustain and build positive brand perceptions over time. So this is where you create memories that lead to increased awareness, so that when that person who's out market comes into a relevant buying situation and needs your business, that your brand is top of mind, right? And so we have to balance between those two things, because the long-term brand building compounds over time. And that's where you want, like Chris was mentioning, this is where you want to like make sure your logo, your creative, that you're remembered against a specific message, so that when people say, I have this problem, that you're the one that's thought of in that place. So when I think about this of like, how do you create success, it is really identifying what are the messages you want to be known for, and then build a long-term strategy to align your brand with that message, that you are a solution of it, right? And so this is where, things like characters, logos, images, creative, music starts to help build memory structures, positive memory structures with people, so that when you are when they're ready to make a decision, that you're the brand, the one that they think of. So at the core of all of this, it's remembering that you as a marketer are in the memory business, right? So we need to create those strong positive memories.
Wow, that's such a great insight, because a lot of the times we're thinking, I post this thing, but no one's seen it. So when that frustration comes, because you could be posting, once every week or so forth, and you're realizing, wait, nobody's engaging. What advice would you give to that person?
Yeah. Well, a couple different things. So one, if someone's posting, you want to pay attention to what's resonating and what's not resonating, right? It could be that you want to make some changes to the types of content you're posting about. So this is how you learn over time. There's actually an activity tab within your LinkedIn account, or if you're marketing, you can see the metrics there. But you want to make changes, adjust, to be sure that your post is resonating. So do more of what's working, less of what's not. You also want to think about what are the messages you can credibly be known for. And so what are you credible for delivering on? What is a common enough buying situation that comes up that someone might be like, this is something that I'm dealing with enough regularity for it to make commercial sense for you? And then the last thing to think about is like, what can you compete on relative to other people? So that might be a good thought exercise for you to think about as you shape your content. And then the other way to think about how it might resonate if you're in marketing is to talk to your customers, and also to talk to your salespeople, because they might be aware of the problems and challenges that trigger a need for a customer to reach out to you. And then those are the things you want to talk about more often. And those are the types of messages that you would want to invest in more often. Beyond that, there are a number of things that you as a leader of your business can do to build your own brand. Connecting with people out in the world, commenting on and being more active on LinkedIn to kind of water your garden, so that you have more engagement and more recognition as the out front leader of that brand. Because, everyone within your company, including you, also plays a role in how people feel about the brand and respond to the brand. And I think that's a big underutilized space for people to take advantage of, that you yourself can help to generate the knowledge, the interest, and the excitement around the brand, along with all of your employees as well.
I love that Ty is saying this and Chris is on this call because we've also incorporated that for FAC. And you have all these high production value pieces of content, video, and so forth. And we put one photo of someone in the business development team, and that got an insane amount of engagement.
Mhm.
Because they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so great to put a face to the name," and people
Yeah,
felt as though they're like, "Oh, I'm part of this business." And something as simple as, "Hey, this is who I am, this is what I look like," is effective for you to be part of your customers' newsfeed because that's ultimately where you want to be,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Relationships matter. They'll always matter.
Fantastic. So we have quite a few people in the comment section loving the conversation so far. Guys, if you have any questions for Ty, she is a busy bee. So if we have her this time, let's just get as much information from her as possible. So don't worry, just slide in the comments, let us know, and I will ask all the questions on your behalf. So we're gonna go on a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna continue the conversation. I'm also gonna continue the insight into data. One next one will be how many folks from Trinidad and Tobago on LinkedIn. So we'll be right back. And welcome back. Thank you so much for joining First Atlantic Commerce. FAC Live covers all things e commerce with guests joining us from different parts of the world, sharing their knowledge on this digital world that we're all a part of. You're not going to find these conversations anywhere else. Trust me, I looked. So don't forget to smash that subscribe button on YouTube so you don't miss a single live show. Be sure to comment if you have any questions, and we'll try our very best to answer them today. Today, we're discussing B2B strategies that work for entrepreneurs, and we are joined by the CEO of First Atlantic Commerce, Chris. Hi, Chris. Are you there? um,
On
you
mute,
good there?
Candy. Hi there.
Okay, all right.
Saving
That's
his
all right.
voice.
Yeah.
Resting.
That's okay. We're saving his voice, but we're going to get some information about the payment space with him later, as well as we're joined by Tyrona Heath. She is the Director of Marketing Engagement at the B2B Institute at LinkedIn. So we have been discussing the B2B marketing space. We've discussed what exactly is B2B marketing, the difference between business to business, just in case you don't know what B2B is, versus B2C, which is business to customer. And it's usually around services versus products. And it could be a little difficult to visualize what that looks like. So when it comes to LinkedIn, it's a very important part of your marketing strategy, especially Caribbean. I'm going to share with you currently there are over 500,000 users from Trinidad and Tobago on LinkedIn. So don't sleep on it.
Definitely not.
Basically,
Yeah.
like the data is there in the data. Like you can't argue with the data. Uh, so if you're joining us and you may have missed earlier the discussion, not to worry. Once the live is over, you can click the replay and get some insights. So we spoke about B2B marketing. We spoke about building that brand, as well as lead generation.
Yeah.
So when it comes to creating a campaign, a lot of people have, I've asked people, who is your target market? And you know what they say to me? Everyone. And I go to them, all the best. I wish you the best of luck. I
Yeah.
don't bother to further the conversation. So, Ty, can you tell us maybe why that's not the best way to look at your B2B marketing strategy?
Well, this is where it gets complicated, and there's some counterintuitive things in there. So I talked about lead generation versus brand building. And so when people are thinking about specific target marketing and even going back to B2B versus B2C, if you're a B2C marketer, for example, and you're selling toothpaste, right? You can target everybody because everybody has teeth, right? Everyone has teeth, so we all need toothpaste. That's fine. In B2B marketing, it's a little bit different because, I mean, you're targeting people that are making the decision makers we talked about earlier, that need to kind of parse these things out. We need to build a long-term relationship. We need to build memory structures associated with the solution. Not everyone can buy a cloud analytics platform. So we have to do a slightly different approach to targeting in B2B, but we don't want to hyper target, right? And I think part of the challenge we face in B2B today is that people will, use the platforms to target, Joe in Montana because we can. But if we're doing that, we're actually making a lot of assumptions about who's on the B2B buying committee, who's in the future B2B buying committee, that we know when someone's going to buy. So the problem that happens when you make a lot of assumptions is that you have a problem and you're typically wrong. So, looking forward for B2B targeting, broader targeting might be the way to go. We still need to target, but we don't need to be hyper about it. So B2B is about reaching all potential buyers. So instead of hyper targeting, what we want to go for is relevant reach. You still want reach. You want to target everybody in the category that could potentially buy from you now and in the future, so that they're seeing your message. We don't want to make assumptions about knowing who's in the committee, who's going to make a buying decision, and who to influence, instead going after the relevant reach. So hopefully that sheds some light for people, because I think on one hand, the answer isn't, target everybody under the sun like you're selling toothpaste. But on the other hand, it's not about hyper targeting to the point where the people who might potentially buy your product at some point are not seeing your ad either. So hopefully that makes sense and clarifies it a bit.
I think that's some great insight, because I one of my rules is actually to run ads on LinkedIn, and you can see sort of a spill off. Even when you look at, okay, someone may not necessarily fall into the category of the job function, but if they engage with your content, their network will now see it as well, and it exposes your business to potential customers. So I definitely can support what you say with data.
Yeah, we don't want to make assumptions. We don't want to
yeah. I mean, we know what assumptions mean, but that's not for us to
exactly. Well, everyone knows that phrase. We won't say it.
exactly. um, so I'm gonna pull in Chris a bit, because Chris is in a B2B space and has been working within the marketing space as well. So can you give us some sort of some insight from your perspective as to why it is important for your business as well to have a specific target market?
Yeah, so from our perspective and my personal perspective, I look at two different sides. So obviously we have the first Atlanta Commerce Power Trends general content, and then from my side of it, and as Ty was talking about before, building that personal brand. Yes, of course, I want to make sure that I'm promoting our general message in terms of us being at the forefront of digital payments within our region, but also to provide that I guess thought leadership from a personal perspective, as somebody that's been operating in the payment space within the Caribbean for nearly 20 years. But of course, you can't be all things to all people. So when we look at our target market, we don't have specific verticals. We believe all verticals can benefit from digital payments for sure, but not all businesses are not necessarily there. And so you've got to build the use case through education in terms of how our services could be beneficial to your type of business. So we don't want to be all things to all people, as I said, but we do believe we have quite a far reach within there, because we believe many businesses can benefit from moving into an online environment where suddenly their businesses go from an 8:30 to 5:30 fixed operation, maybe Monday to Friday, to a business that is open to the world and that can run, 24/7, 365. So, from our perspective, again, we're trying to show what those benefits are from moving into a digital payments perspective, but then also providing that layer of trust and helping them through that journey.
Awesome. And we can also say, based on what we've seen with building the B2B audience for FAC, for Islamic commerce, we've seen the SEO, when it comes to people searching for commerce, e-commerce within the Caribbean, the blogs that we've created, the articles that we've created on LinkedIn usually are on par with the website. So it's extremely important to have that content that's relevant, because they are searching for understanding of the e-commerce, because a lot of people were blindsided by what happened a few years ago. So that learning process is extremely important. I want to shout out Diane Squires. She's joining us from Barbados, and she loves the connection Ty made a few minutes ago regarding brand building efforts as building trust for what you want to be known for. And guys, as I said earlier, if you miss any of the discussion, not to worry, it's on the replay. You can check it out. It's actually easier to find it on YouTube. So when it comes to researching and replaying, check that out. Definitely join us on LinkedIn as well for those videos. So, we've spoken about data and how important it is, and we can't have this discussion with Ty without talking about the B2B Institute. We're going to put the link in the comment section. So for folks who are watching this from the Caribbean, they'll be like, well, that information is from, the international perspective. Why do you think it's important for someone to look at that information, like the CMO scorecard, for instance, the brand metrics, right, business outcomes? Why should the business look at this information and relevant to them?
Yeah. I think it's important for folks to look at it, because regardless of where you are globally, it's a conversation about what are the fundamental things that help you grow a brand, and the CMO scorecard is our assessment. It's a years long effort on the content in a year from the beginning to launching it last year, to understand what are the fundamentals. And the CMO scorecard, each letter of the CMO word stands for the elements of building an effective brand. So C stands for creative. And that's when you think about the brand building aspect of what it is to be a marketer. We're in the memory business. If people don't remember you, they don't buy. The brand that's remembered is the brand that's bought, right? So creative means your ads need to catch people's eyes. We need to invest more in ads that people spend time looking at. We need to make sure we're branding our ads early and often, that we have distinctive colors, distinctive assets, including your logos, using characters, using emotion, using these things that help you be remembered. And then we need our ads to relate to what our buyers need. So I keep coming back to this idea of, what do you want to be known for, and making sure that message has the best reach that you can possibly achieve for it. The M in CMO stands for media, and that's for how you distribute the work that you're doing. And so when it comes to media, we want you to spread your advertising budget evenly throughout the year. And this helps keep your brand visible consistently. What people try to do is time the market, but it's not about timing the market. It's about time in the market so that you can be seen. We want it to be effective. We want you to reach as many potential buyers as possible, and making sure that they're the right people in the industry. And then also we want to look at the efficiency as well. So we want to spend more on ads that create demand for the product and divest away from things that aren't as efficient. And then O is outcomes, CMO. So O is outcomes. How is your marketing effort helping to deliver bigger business outcomes for your business? Are you hiring more easily? Are you marketing more effectively? are you selling more effectively? Higher market sell. These are the things that having a strong brand helps you do more effectively. And that's the CMO scorecard report is where you can dive more deeply into each of those specific aspects I talked about and think about how do you move the needle for your own business. And this is regardless of where you are in the world and the space that you're in.
Yes, and we are getting smaller and smaller because we're so connected. And a lot of times, Caribbean entrepreneurs don't think globally. And I think it's so important for us to understand that your service is important and someone can use it all over the world. Because, I mean, look at us now, we're in three different parts of the world and we're having
Right.
this discussion. So it's important for you guys who are watching this to be able to say, yes, I am good enough to work on an international level, and
Mhm.
we have faith in you. You can do it.
Absolutely.
So we have Christina in the comments from Barbados. Excellent point about memory building. We don't think about it a lot. We're just like, hey, let's just throw some content out there. But the reality is, as you said earlier, we want to be top of mind. We want to be the first people when they think about a service. You want to be the first person that they think about. So we are in the business of memory building, and I think I may have to update my LinkedIn profile on that.
Yeah, I mean, just to comment on that, I mean, I have lost track of how
Mhm.
many times people have come back to me over the years and said, we had an initial conversation about this, or, I've been following you on LinkedIn for X amount of years, and now the time is right for me to try and engage your services.
Exactly.
And so it's exactly to your point, in terms of, making sure that you're constantly there reinforcing the message. So when the time is right, they will find you again.
Huge.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and what is the alternative? Because people like to go the term, oh, bring back the old time days. And like old time days means jumping in my car and going like spending an hour to get there, spending another hour and a half, and then you're like, okay, we're waiting to see when this is going to come into fruition. But we are in a way better position now, guys. Let's be honest.
Way better. Yeah, for sure.
So we are going to go on a quick break. We're definitely missing because of our comment section. I'm getting this data specifically on the folks who've commented, and I do have the data on the amount of people from Barbados, Bajans. Hey, so when we come back, we're going to cover that as well as give you some insights into if you're a new entrepreneur and you want to start your brand. We want to find out from Ty what advice would she give to you. So we'll be right back. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to First Atlantic Commerce. Here in the FSC Live show, we cover all things e commerce in the Caribbean, and our guests join us from all over the world who generously share their expertise, knowledge, and insight into the digital world and how we operate within it. If you join us from LinkedIn, don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you grow your business online. Today, we're talking about B2B strategies within the entrepreneurship space, and specifically, we want to give some insights for the Caribbean. We're joined today by the CEO of Chris Atlantic Commerce. Hi, Chris. You
Hi
there?
there.
Okay, great. Just making sure audio check. As well as Tyrona Heath. She is the marketing engagement director at the B2B Institute at LinkedIn. If you check over to the comments, we have put in some links because we discussed a lot about some data that LinkedIn is giving freely to you. So check it out. It's definitely worth looking at the data. So we discussed a lot about building memory for your business in terms of your potential customer going, hey, you're the first person I think about when I need the service. But when it comes to just feeling like I don't know where to start, because a lot of the times folks tell me, oh my gosh, I have all these ideas and, I want to do this and I want to do that. Ty, do you have any advice for that person who may feel stuck or, it's like too much idea of overload. So give us some insight.
Yeah. I think the best way to start is with yourself. And I say that because we were talking about this earlier. Relationships matter, and so it can be helpful to open up your aperture and maybe think about LinkedIn as a way to learn more about your audience and sort of get into the mindset of your customers. So, and we talked a lot about marketing strategy, lead generation, and brand building, but I think it helps for you to kind of get into the thinking on LinkedIn as a platform and start to look at it as the conversation before the conversation. And I say that because, a lot of times before you connect with people that you run into in the world as you're out talking about your business, as you're out selling and having conversations, one of the things they'll do is search for your name. And more often than not, LinkedIn is probably one of the first search results if you have a profile. So that becomes an opportunity for you to, start to connect with people, to have informational conversations with folks in your category, for you to, set up alerts to follow other companies that maybe you are wanting to approach, to sell to learn more about, to partner with, and start to think about how your brand can be a magnet for those opportunities. And to really think about owning your own executive brand. And frankly, that's an asset because it costs you time, effort, and arguably money for you to build. And people choose to associate with you or do business with you rather than spending money and time elsewhere because you've built that trust. And as you do that for yourself, a lot of those same things translate over into how you build your company's brand, right? It's the brand is a reliable guarantee of what you're going to deliver. And that time you spend on LinkedIn and out in the world interacting and building those connections can help you get a clearer sense of what message it is that you want to build memory around. So, I'll just give a really quick example to illustrate this because this can be applied to yourself or your company. But if you're a coffee drinker, you maybe think about Starbucks or whatever the biggest brand wherever you live is. But then when you start to think about there are different buying situations. So for example, if I am sitting on my couch at home on a Sunday morning, I might think of a different brand. Maybe it's Nescafe. If I'm going to meet a friend out for coffee, maybe that's a different brand. So start to get connected to what are all the different buying situations where someone might need you or your business, and then think about what is the right message to connect yourself or your business to that brand. And the only way to really learn more about that is to do the research or go out in the world and start having the conversations so that you understand those messages and those connections and the buying situations that you can invest in even more. So I'll pause there.
I love that example. Well, you said coffee, and I was like, what? What?
Of
Obsessed.
that line. Always.
Yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So I love that example because the idea of, okay, this is my customer, and this is, it's almost like a funnel. Like, this is where my customer will be, this is how they think. But then, as you said, you may have an idea, but you want to use the data, which is readily available for you to make some informed decisions on your business. So I really appreciate that example. I hope you out there, if you have any questions, let us know. So in the space of looking at your customer and looking at that process, I want to bring in Chris because we've had this conversation multiple times, but we're going to have it multiple more. So when it comes to that sort of that journey, with the looking at it from the marketing perspective, but how important is it from the payment side of things?
It's extremely important because it's always top of mind for businesses and how they secure their revenue. And so we always want to be promoting the message of as we talked about earlier, about trust, about reliability, about customer service. and about exposure into all the different markets that we operate in. So we operate in 28 different countries, and we work with some companies that operate in all those countries. So they need to know and have that message reinforced that we can support them in terms of payments acceptance in all the different markets that they operate in. But you're sort of picking up with something with Ty said as well. I think, and this is something I want to ask Ty as well, actually, in terms of mistakes you see on these platforms, and what we see sometimes is that there's a lot of companies that are focused on I instead of us, in terms of the messaging, and rather than trying to create, and it's a fine balance of creating a message of not being seen to show off per se, but rather than to educate about what you're about and what your company's about and what value you can bring. And I'd love to hear what Ty has to say about sort of LinkedIn mistakes that people make, that she sees on a daily basis.
Yes, so am I. Can't wait.
Yeah, what mistakes people make on LinkedIn. And I can share a little bit also like the mistakes I see people making in marketing more broadly. I think you nailed it in terms of like not thinking about your customer and being too I centric. It's important to think about and solve problems for folks. To remember that folks are human as well. So not to be like people think it's a professional social network, but that doesn't mean be robotic on there. It also means respect people's time, and be thoughtful about how you'd want to be approached on LinkedIn. So you're not spamming in people's DMs. You're being respectful. You're offering value both in your posts and the way you reach out to people. I would say in terms of like marketing mistakes, going back to the 95-5 rule I talked about, people tend to over allocate most of their budget to people who are already in market, which means that you're not investing in future cash flow. You're not building your brand for people who are out market and who would buy from you in the future. You're just capturing latent demand. And when economic situations are challenging, it might be that there's no latent demand to capture, in which case we do need to focus more on brand building. And then the last thing I would say is that being sort of overly invested in what I call the product delusion. And this is where you kind of fall into the trap of like attribute-based advertising, where you're solely focused on the features and benefits of the product. I'll give you an example. When you're building a brand, and let's say you're Coca-Cola, it would be a mistake to say, hi, we're Coca-Cola. We have this sweet, brown, and fizzy product that's 95% guaranteed to help you quench your thirst. That's not very memorable. That's why they have a red can with a white stripe, why they use polar bears in their marketing, because they know that infusing those things into it are memory building devices. So we want to think about how to be, more indexing towards that memory building. A lot of B2B marketing is typically, people in business suits sitting around a conference room table, chatting about something, and that's not very memorable. So those are some quick hit mistakes that people make both on LinkedIn and also in the realm of marketing in B2B.
Yes, I'm seeing a theme in this conversation, and I definitely think coming out of this, I don't know if you guys who are watching this will agree, but within the B2B marketing strategy, I would say be memorable. I think
Yep.
this entire conversation is a great way for us to like, okay, this is something that I can do for my business starting today, right? So we're gonna close off, but before we do, I want to find out from Ty, because she's off to this big conference, Adobe Summit in Las Vegas. So we want some exclusive insights. What is your prediction? What's one of the predictions you have for B2B marketing in the next decade or so?
Yeah. I think B2B is going to come into its own. I'm actually super excited about what's possible for B2B right now. As I said, it's, over half of the global economy, but a lot of people don't recognize or know a lot of these B2B brands. And even if you know the brand, maybe you don't even know what they do. So I think that B2B branding can be magnitudes bigger as a category. And I predict that more people are going to understand that. And we're going to see the rise of some really famous and amazing B2B brands. That's my prediction.
Thank you so much for that. That is extremely important. And any prediction for you within the payment gateways segment, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely echo what Ty's saying there. And, you know, it's because it's so important that we're able to get that message out. And payments is such a fast moving, dynamic industry that we constantly have to get the message out there that we are moving with it and that we can help you get to where you want to be with the technology that we're able to offer. And because we are a B2B company, you know, it's upon us to make sure that we're getting that messaging right, getting to ensure that we are memorable, and that we will be top of mind for people when they think about accepting payments throughout the Caribbean and Central America.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. So shout out to Zahra. Where can we find the data from the LinkedIn just mentioned? It's actually in the advertising area. If you want to just slide into our DMs, we actually do have a DM section on LinkedIn. Thanks for LinkedIn for that. So we can send you the link to that. So the Barbados data, don't forget, I didn't forget you. It's over 150,000 people from Barbados on LinkedIn. So with that piece of information, I am going to close off and thank you so much. I think we have the comment section for you, Zahra, with the link. And for Stephen, Felix, you may have joined a little late. That's okay. Once this recording is over, you will have access to this full video. You can share it with your team. Once it's closed off, you can have the recording on LinkedIn as well as YouTube. So thank you so much again for everyone joining us. I know a lot of people are now joining, but that's okay. You can check out the record and add Ty to your LinkedIn network. So thanks again to Tyrona for joining us today as we discuss B2B strategies for entrepreneurs. And be sure to follow our pages on YouTube and LinkedIn to be notified on our next FAC Live panel discussion. You don't want to miss the next one because it's about education, and I'm excited to have that discussion within the Caribbean space. So see you soon. Bye.